I'm going to say something that's a big exaggeration. I need people to bear with me here. I don't 100% feel this way, but the way that I feel about Castlevania stories is no one should talk except for Dracula. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tales from the Backlog, a gaming deep dive podcast. I'm your host, as always, Dave Jackson, he, him.
And I'm Gen Moonen, they, she.
And today we'll be covering Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. But before we get into Castlevania, a few quick things. If this is your first time here on the show, thanks for checking it out. And if you're worried about spoilers for Portrait of Ruin, don't worry, we're not going to spoil the story. For a while, this game does have a story. There's some things that are revealed. And we're not going to get to like shop talky either, I suppose, for a while. So there's a spoiler section at the end of the episode. You can look down in the show notes for when that begins. And if you like the show and you're thinking about how you can support it, there are a lot of cool ways to do that. Word of mouth is undefeated, so tell a friend about the show. You can share it around in Discord servers and the like. And then you can leave ratings and reviews on the podcast apps. You can like and comment if you're here on YouTube. And also, if you want to support monetarily, throw me a few bucks a month over at patreon.com/realdavejackson. Now, with all that being said, you heard another voice at the top of the show. Besides my own, Gen Moonen is back with me today. They're one of the hosts of Fun and Games podcast, and they can also kill demons with a copy of Don Quixote. Welcome back to the show, Jen.
Well, thank you so much, Dave, for having me back. And, you know, honestly, it's amazing what the power of reading can do when you're in a mythical castle filled with a kitchen sink of horror.
This is great. Yeah, I was thinking, like, how can we get kids to read in library programs over the summer? Well, tell them that you can kill demons with the books that you have, but you got to read them first. I get the feeling that Charlotte's read all the books in this game.
Yeah, you know, you have to read them first to learn how to properly wield them. Otherwise, It's just... Look, a particularly heavy book is a heck of a blunt instrument, but it doesn't have the same range, you know? Range is important. You don't want them too close to you.
Exactly, yeah. I can't wait to see what kind of magical spell I can use when I finish reading Moby Dick. Yeah.
I feel like if you read the right copy of Dune, like the reach that sandworm is going to have is frankly disturbing.
Oh, yeah. Those vampires don't stand a chance. So,
No.
Great to have you back. This is, by my count, maybe like your fourth time on the show.
Yeah.
We had a long time ago, we had a big comparison episode of the 3 versions of Metroid 2, which was a lot of fun. We did Metal Gear Solid 4 together. And then most recently, we had a discussion about comedy in video games, which I think was a really fun one.
Yeah, which I think those first 2 episodes really gave me a very inflated idea of how long these episodes go, because that Metroid 2 comparison was comparing 3 games, and it also had Matt Storm and Case Aiken on there, and
yes,
it was
did.
We had a lot. And Metal Gear Solid 4, I can talk for hours about it, so I think we'll be okay this time.
Yeah, we're certainly not going to spend an hour and a half talking about story in this game. So
goodness no.
Yeah. So, once again, today's game is Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. It is a Metroidvania RPG, emphasis on the Vania here. Should mention it for Castlevania. Developed and published by Konami for the DS in 2006, and it was later re-released in the Castlevania Dominus Collection in 2024 on modern platforms. So you can play this just about anywhere that you play games in the current day. And I do want to mention, before we get too deep into it, this game is on the show because it won one of my monthly Patreon polls. Every month, we do a vote for a game for me to play and cover on the show, and this game won. So thank you to, I believe it was Chris Nelson who nominated this, and thank you to everyone who voted for the game. So...
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jen thanks you too for getting Castlevania on the show, for sure.
I will talk about any Castlevania game. Thank you for this.
Yes. Main credits for Portrait of Ruin. There are a lot of people, but we have the primary ones up top. The game was directed by Satoshi Kushibuchi, produced by Koji Igarashi, programming by Shutaro Iida, and writing credits to Koji Igarashi, Hiroto Yamaguchi, and Shutaro Iida. And composition to Michiru Yamane and Yuzo Koshiro. Hey, there's a name that I recognize right there.
Yeah.
Elevator pitch time if we don't know what Portrait of Ruin is. Now, I assume people have a general idea of Castlevania and what you're doing in these games, but for Portrait of Ruin specifically, I say do 2 non-Belmonts equal 1 Belmont? Find out in Castlevania Portrait of Ruin.
And I would say you are saving the world by destroying art with the power of friendship and anime.
Yes.
Slay the night away in Castlevania Portrait of Ruin.
Fantastic. Love it. I played this for the show on the DS, so I actually played the DS version of it. Nice. 9 hours for, and this makes me laugh every time I see it, I got 895% completion in the game here.
Hey, that's a lot of... Most games don't get anywhere near that level of completion.
No,
like, think of how much game is in this game.
You get like I remember Hollow Knight has like 115% completion and stuff like some games will get a little cute with it. Mm-hmm. Portrait of Ruin's like, fuck it, 895%. Good job, Dave.
I mean, I like it because there are 10 separate maps within the game, and each of them have 100% completion to a grand total of having 1,000% completion. Yeah, my playthrough to prepare for this recording, it wasn't my first playthrough of the game. Right. I played for about 11 hours for 1,000% completion.
There we go. Was that on the DS or the new collection?
It was on the DS. I actually don't have the Dominus collection, but I played it on the original version.
All right, so both of us are coming at this with the DS version in mind. I have heard that the Dominus collection is quite good. All the Castlevania collections have gotten really good reviews. So if anyone out there doesn't have a DS, I think there's a good version of the game that you can still play.
Yeah, most of the collections have been fantastic, the ones that I have played.
Yeah. So you said this wasn't your first time playing Portrait of Ruin for the show here. What's your history with Castlevania? And with this game in particular?
Castlevania, it's a series that I absolutely adore, but I was not an early adopter of it. I kind of got into it with the Metroidvanias. My very first Castlevania title was Symphony of the Night on the PS1 around when it came out. There's a story that's floating around on enough podcasts that I've told that my brother thought he was renting Legacy of Kain and instead came back with Symphony of the Night, and this was the best mix-up ever. And I fell in love with the series, so got super into it. Like, I emulated the old classic Vanias, and I didn't have a Game Boy Advance when Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow were coming out, but I followed them avidly. I'd read IGN reviews. I looked up I watched trailers. I was super into it, but I did have a DS when Dawn of Sorrow came out, so got back into playing them actively with that. So Portrait of Ruin is probably the first one that I got in a while that was like, it just came out, I hopped on it. It came out in December of 2006, and I got it for Christmas that year. So I got the nice edition. This game also came out, 2006 was the 20th anniversary of Castlevania, so there was a special edition that had a 2-disc soundtrack CD that had, the first disc was just Portrait of Ruin. The second disc was a whole retrospective of Castlevania music, which
Sick.
Nothing wrong with that. It had an art book to it. It was beautiful. So this was, that was, Portrait of Ruin is one that I lost myself in and definitely got 1,000%. Took me a little longer the first time, but, and so it's one that I don't always, but will periodically go back to, start a new file, and just get myself lost in it. Yeah,
love that. I'm kind of similar to you that I didn't start with the Castlevania series with the classics. I didn't have an NES or a Super Nintendo growing up, and I had an N64, but I did not play the Castlevania game or games on there. I'm not sure.
Smart.
Yeah, didn't play them. I was a kid. I didn't know any better. We just didn't have it. So
fair.
Yeah, so my first was Circle of the Moon on the Game Boy Advance, and that, and then Harmony of Dissonance, and then Aria of Sorrow. I just devoured all of those on the Game Boy Advance. And it's interesting to me that both of us kind of we've explored the Castlevania series since, but both of ours first framing of what Castlevania is that later, Igarashi style of the games.
Yeah. Well, and especially since the Castlevania series refers to itself endlessly. Like, what a meta series on its own. I mean, the very first game has, like, those bosses were there because of monster movies, and the end credits was, Hammer horror style puns. And then those bosses have to show up in every game now for whatever reason. It's endlessly recursive in a fun way. Mm-hmm. And so whichever one is your first one is mind-blowing, horror, whatever else. And then you play any of the other ones and you just kind of go, you cheeky little bastards.
Yeah. It's definitely, I remember going through this game and like having some enemies pop up and be like, yep, here it is again. Here's my old friend Death,
Yeah, playing Symphony of the Night and being like, oh my God, no, this is a huge opening, and I understood what it was, especially then going back and playing the NES and SNES games.
Yeah.
And then, like, I finally got to play Dracula X Rondo of Blood, Richter's first appearance a few years after, and then having no, legit, this is, Symphony of the Night is just a sequel to this. You have reused sprites, animations, literal. I'm not mad about that. They look great. Like, keep using them. And some of them are reused here in Portrait of Ruin even, all the way up. But, like, there's just oh, yeah, this was the first one. No, it wasn't.
Right. Yep. Even with that little reset, it's continuing on what was built before, for sure. Yeah. And I have gone back. I do a bonus series on my Patreon called Tales from the Way Backlog, where I have gone back and two of those games, I think I've done 36, 37 of them at this point. Mm-hmm. Two of them were Castlevanias. I did Simon's Quest and I did Super Castlevania 4 for episodes of that. I'm one of the world's premier Simon's Quest defenders. I fucking love that game. Flaws and all. I'll talk about the flaws if we need to, but they really just made a very fucking cool game with Simon's Quest. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those not for everybody, but it's not a bad game.
Yeah.
It was a little ahead of its time in terms of we would not have accepted some of what Simon's Quest did today if it happened. But with context, you're like, no, that's fair. And with the knowledge of today, you can go, I can overcome that problem. So it's so worth playing. Worth playing.
If only to hear the song Bloody Tears in its natural habitat. For
yes.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, like reference and those things where you're just like, oh man, this song slaps. Yeah. Yep. And it did on the NES too. Yep. And it's not like, it only showed up once or twice. That is what you're listening to when you play. It never gets old.
Yep. And you'll hear it in a bunch of other games in the series too. Like they keep calling back, like you said, to the past. And so to give some kind of top level thoughts here about Portrait of Ruin, I've played, so like I have not done a Castlevania game on the main podcast before, but I have been playing them in the background a little bit.
Yeah.
I played Aria of Sorrow again a few years ago just for Dave. No podcast related, just played it for fun. I have been messing around with the classic games, like I said, and I actually played part of Circle of the Moon, at least half of it, a couple years ago also. And what I'm kind of realizing about these later iterations of Castlevania is that they are like a comfort food to me. I think that they're all basically good in the same ways. And with Portrait of Ruin specifically, all of those ways that I think these games are good, like there's kind of a driving momentum to them where I'm just cruising through the castle, exploring, hitting stuff with the whip, collecting hearts and throwing axes and all that shit. And it's just a very pleasing type of game to me. The music always kicks ass. It's the same in Portrait of Ruin. And with Portrait of Ruin, there's some other stuff that they introduce that I think is like, okay, it mixes things up a little bit. I'm not sure that it adds a whole lot to the experience. And the other things that I don't love about Castlevania, like, for example, I don't think these games generally have great boss fights. I'm never excited to find a boss fight in these games. Kind of the same in Portrait of Ruin. There are some that I like, and there's some that I really dislike. All of that stuff stays pretty consistent. And so I like Portrait of Ruin. I don't love it. I'm not sure that I'll replay it anytime. But I'm glad to have played it. And especially, this is the first one on the DS that I've played. Never played Order of Ecclesia or the other DS games.
Or Dawn of Sorrow, wow.
I really like I like playing these games on the DS with the map on the other screen or bringing up your inventory on the other screen. Like, it's just great to have that available and keep me in the game in other ways. So just throwing that out there. But I guess where I'm landing on this is I like this in the same way that I like most of the other ones of this era, for the same reasons, and nothing really beyond that, we'll say.
Sometimes more of the same of something you really like isn't a problem. Like if you're a big AC/DC fan, like, oh no, another AC/DC album.
Yeah, it sounds basically the same as the one that came out a couple years ago. Yeah.
Just like, but I love it. But whereas for me, it's, I enjoy all of the different ways that each of these, the Vanias are, they contrast with each other. Portrait of Ruin is an interesting midpoint as far as a lot of developmental things.
It's the first one on the DS, right?
The second one. It was Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, then Order of Ecclesia.
Okay.
Portrait of Ruin, because Dawn of Sorrow was such an early DS title, the reason you have to draw glyphs and use the touchscreen to clear ice in it is because it's just like, we've got the brand new touchscreen. Use it for all sorts of cool things. This is the worst part of an otherwise fantastic game. How dare you? Portrait of Ruin, far enough into the DS's life, they can lean into the fact that, what do you need the second screen for? Look at the map. Is that enough? Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Metroidvanias, the Castlevania games on the DS, are like one of the shining examples for me when I like defend dual screen gaming. I don't often need to defend it, but when I extol about it, I suppose. But Portrait of Ruin also starts exploring the, like, let's get out of the castle a little bit. Like Order of Ecclesia has fun with that. And some of the later classic Vanias had, I mean, even Castlevania 3 for the NES, you are outside of the castle dealing with horror things before you get to the castle proper.
Oh, yeah.
But because of the way Portrait of Ruin is set up, it's a little more, this is probably the smallest the castle is for any of these exploring the castle.
Yeah.
So it's not as wide of a game, but there's 1,000% map completion. You can grind for experience and level things up. There's stuff to find. It is a much deeper game than it is wide. And it's got a good sense of fun the whole way through, a little bit of whimsy about it, a good sense of humor.
Yes.
While also getting gothic and serious and silly. So that's one of the reasons why this is a fun one for me to kind of just go back to, much so like you were saying, Dave, about comfort food. This is one where it's like, yeah, now I'm going to reach a point in the game, I'm going to max out every sub-weapon. And I did max out every sub-weapon. I'm currently filling out the bestiary. Like, I'm getting all of the drops and just filling it out, and it does feel good to move and maneuver in this game. And the character switching that they do also feels seamless, whether you are swapping in solo, dropping them in to fight with you, or for just to use their sub-weapon ability. Yeah. All of them feel very just nice and fiddly. So it's a fun one to get lost in for a little while and just kind of have. It's probably, out of all of the comfort food Metroidvanias, this is the comfort foodiest for me.
Yeah, I suppose that a lot of the new things that they introduced in here are not really like ways that change up the core experience of playing, which is one of the reasons why it didn't like add much for me, but it's not obtrusive in a way where you're like, yeah, they tried out this new mechanic and it totally threw things off. Like, you stay right in the groove of playing Castlevania.
It's a lot of refinements. Like, there's many things you can point to in this that I can go, I see that this is the second or fourth or whatever iteration on this idea. They were refining this. Portrait of Ruin is a very refined game. Not necessarily refined taste, but it's it shows the evolution of these ideas being explored.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of things to talk about throughout the rest of the episode. Let's take a music break. We'll come back. We'll set up the story and talk a little bit about Castlevania stories, I feel like. So, Portrait of Ruin takes place in Europe in 1944, where I laughed during the opening cutscene. The terrors of World War II have brought Dracula's castle back. Like, Dracula's castle is just heat-seeking toward areas where misery is strong.
I mean, that is implied sometimes. It's always a little dodgy about the full canon of Dracula, which is funny to say anyway. But like, you know what? If you're going to pick some evil times for Dracula to show up, World War II is yeah, okay.
So I'm just imagining, like, in Europe in 1944, everyone's having the worst time ever, and then fuck, Dracula's castle just showed up. God damn it.
Well, this may as well happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, you play as dual protagonists in Portrait of Ruin. Their names are Jonathan and Charlotte. Jonathan is the son of the protagonist of Castlevania Bloodlines, John Morris. I did not play that game. I read that.
And John Morris is himself the son of Quincy Morris, one of the characters from the Dracula novel.
Okay. Oh, right on. Okay. I got that on my shelf. I need to read it this year. So Jonathan is the son of John Morris. Jonathan wields the legendary vampire killer whip, although he's not a Belmont, so he can't use it to its full potential. But he has it. You have it at the beginning of the game. You can hit stuff with it, but it is just a regular ass whip for Jonathan.
Yeah. Cool whip, but not magic.
Yeah, I mean, he uses it well enough, but it doesn't have the magic. And that's part of the story is Jonathan figuring out how to unlock the full potential of this whip and any implications and stuff. We'll talk about that. The other protagonist is named Charlotte, and Charlotte, to me, is a lot less developed as far as like personal history goes, but she is a very strong mage, and she attacks using books, which I think is awesome. You literally will pick up Don Quixote in the game, and it is a very strong weapon, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, she holds the book out, opens it up, and whatever kind of book it is, imagery pops out of it. Like, her main weapon is called the Tome of Arms, and you find stronger versions of it. And you open it up, and weapons fly out of it. Yep. Don Quixote, a big Spanish knight on a horse comes out.
It's great. Would have loved for a windmill to pop out of it. That would have been awesome.
Oh, my gosh. Especially if it was like a spin attack.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Missed opportunities, but
like
it's fun.
Think about in other games that have like a pizza cutter type weapon that hits, revolves and hits a bunch of times in a row. That would have been awesome.
Her chainsaw.
Yes, exactly. But that's not what it is. The books are still fantastic weapons. And you have these two protagonists here, Jonathan and Charlotte. And you can switch between them at will as you play through there. They're both involved in the story, although if I had to say there's one character that's more important, it's definitely Jonathan. As far as like the main player, his history, things like that. Yeah.
Charlotte, it's more of a thing of she and Jonathan are have been lifelong friends since they were kids and whatever else, which again, Jonathan is American and Charlotte is as well. So I guess, there's a lot of occult magic to be learned in early 20th century Texas, which, you know what? Sure, why not? And there's references to Charlotte already having one hell of a reputation as a magician. When she first shows up, there's a bit of just hi there, I'm a 16-year-old girl. Wait, the Charlotte is you're real and you're a child kind of thing. And so I'm kind of glad we don't know more about it. I'm so curious about the story about it, but it's just kind of what about it? We're here to stop Dracula. We're here to stop vampires. What's the problem? Off we go.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that we're here to stop Dracula, because the first kind of wrench in the plan is this is Dracula's castle, but Dracula is not in charge right now. There's a different vampire named Bronner who's in charge. Bronner and his two daughters are running the castle, and you mostly run up against the two daughters as you go through the castle in the early portions of the game. And so it's kind of felt like a situation to me where you're like, oh, you're not the vampire that I came here to kill. Well, you're another bad vampire, so I guess you got to go. So now it's, all right, we're taking out Bronner.
Yeah, well, it's we're here to take, look, the castle showed up. We're here to stop the castle. You go in and there's a guy with an impossibly high collar going, I am in charge of the castle. It's well, I guess we're killing you because we're trying to stop the castle. So sure, let's go.
Yep, 100%. Now, with all of that story setup being laid out, I'm going to say something that's a big exaggeration. I need people to bear with me here. I don't 100% feel this way, but the way that I feel about Castlevania stories is no one should talk except for Dracula. I have played plenty of Castlevania games with more story than the classics. To me, Castlevania is 99% a gameplay series. I don't give a shit about characters. The thing that I care about, this is why it's an exaggeration, because I kind of like, I follow the story. I think some of the beats in Portrait of Ruin are kind of neat, especially regarding Jonathan and his past and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Things, but I'm not emotionally involved in anything in a Castlevania story. The things that I think are neat are this like continuing like war between Dracula and the Belmonts. And in this case, it's not the Belmonts, but it's kind of this related to the Belmonts. Like Jonathan has the whip and everything like that. So there are moments in this game that I think are supposed to be emotional beats. I can't care, but, the story, it does its job to kind of set up why I'm going through the castle and then give me a couple of neat little things along the way. Nothing beyond that for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think for Castlevania, I care about the story about as much as I care about the story in a fighting game. Which is to say, more than the average person.
Okay.
But not like, look, if it's a basic tropes and a couple of bits of fun melodrama, perfect, great.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Dave, that for the most part, the titular character is the castle. Even in Japanese, it's like Akumajo Dracula, it's like Demon Castle of Dracula. Mm-hmm. It is always about the castle. So whether you are fighting Dracula or Bronner or Camilla or whomever, it's about stopping evil. Like, and it's across centuries, and it is a kitchen sink horror container of every myth at once. Like, where can we pull a freaky design? Cool. Can we make one up? Great. Throw it in there. It all happens at once. You know, we want to talk N64 Castlevania, skeletons on motorcycles. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And so, answer a few questions about like, who are these people that are trying to take down the castle? Great. Let's have some fun with that. And there is something to be explored about the burden of this fight of, all it takes for evil to win is for good men to do nothing. And, whether you are of the legendary Belmont clan, which has its own onus about it, but also if you're not, and you're the one that's got the whip, what do you do with it? I mean, you must whip it, but what do you do? And as far as Dracula should be the only one to talk, I mean, look, everything Alucard said in Symphony of the Night was gold. I don't care. And in this one, in Portrait of Ruin, I did not expect Death to be one of my favorite characters. But like, he kind of shows up and it just kind of, you go to take down the castle and Jonathan and Charlotte have a little bit of a, oh, it's not Dracula. And Death shows up and it's just like, oh, it's not Dracula. And Death and your two meddling kids, like, kind of taunt each other. It's like, okay, none of us like that Bronner's here, but we're all going to have to deal with each other at some point. And they just kind of taunt each other a little bit. It's fun.
Yeah. The one other thing that I will give the game credit for is I think that the game has a really nice sense of humor. So when we talk about story and when we talk about, writing especially, it's not necessarily that the story and character arcs are doing a lot for me. And I think that probably the character arc storyline with Jonathan that I thought was the most interesting on paper didn't pay off in a way that I thought was interesting or good.
Right.
But along the way, this game has, I think you've mentioned a couple times now, a really fun sense of humor to it where whether it's characters kind of talking shit to each other or just like the invisible man enemy that you fight becomes invisible by disrobing in front of you. Yeah. And then you can't find him because he's invisible, just like in the book.
Yeah, pretty much. There's demonic maids, and sometimes they're called Persephone enemies. And sometimes the Persephone enemies start off with a big vacuum cleaner, like one of the big tube ones kind of thing. And they can temporarily stun you by, turning that on and sucking your butt into the machine. Yep. And for Jonathan, it's just like a big goofy, like his butt's in there, like, and Charlotte, it's like holding her skirt down, like preserving her modesty, like funny little animations that go on with that. And I think that's the thing too. They don't do a ton of, hi there, we're going to stop the storyline and do a bit. A lot of them are just kind of baked into throughout the game. And I do like that the fact that certain enemies will react differently to Jonathan or to Charlotte. They will treat you differently based on if you're the boy or the girl.
Interesting.
And,
hadn't noticed that.
There's a lot of little things. Like if you're just kind of cruising through and just fucking it up in there, you don't notice it. Yeah. But in an early area, there's like a very musketeer-like kind of enemy. And if you go up to him as Jonathan, it's just like, draw steel, you cur, and like whatever else. If you go up as just Charlotte, he does the thing like he's about to strike and then kneels and presents a rose.
Huh.
That's cool. The succubus type enemies taunt you differently based on, they try to draw you in if you're Jonathan and insult you if you're Charlotte. And none of these are big. You might not notice them, but they're there.
There are some that I did notice, and I guess this is a cue into, talking about what it's like to play the game. And the game is kind of distinguishing feature, I guess, between other Castlevanias like this. I think, is this the first or only one of these with like dual character switching?
It's the first one to really make it a key part.
Okay.
Castlevania 3 for the NES was the first one to really allow for it, where there were 3 possible options. You had Grant, Sypha, and Alucard, and you would recruit one of them at a time. And you could switch between Trevor and the other character. Like you hit select on the NES, and there's like a slow animation, like a very kind of thing, switching between them, which you then play. In Dawn of Sorrow for the DS, there's an unlockable mode where you play as the living Belmont in that era, Julius. And Julius mode is a nod to Castlevania 3, where you can recruit the current Belnadas, Sypha's descendant, and Alucard, because he's immortal. So that even has like a faster, but still like stops, declares the name of the next person, like, Julius, Rocco, Arigato, and like kind of switching between them, like a little thing. This one, it really bakes it in, and it makes it super fast. If you do not even stop momentum if you hit the character switch button while you're moving. And this also, because Jonathan is the descendant of John Morris, the main playable whip-wielding character from Castlevania Bloodline, he was not the only playable character. There was also Eric Lecard. So that one, you picked one or the other. But kind of having the dual character idea here is, yet again, the refinement, the end point, or the what have you of, they've switched between multiple characters in gameplay before. In Dawn of Sorrow, and I think in Aria as well, you're able to set up different loadouts for Soma that you can, like, at the push of a button, switch between, like, all right, I've got these weapons and these souls to work with.
Right.
Yet again, this is that same idea, like, just Soma is Soma and switching between two things. This allows for very divergent gameplay. You can have the Belmont-style sub-weapon wielding warrior, and you can have the magic, and you can have the utility, Right. Charlotte is basically an omni-utility character, and you can shove all of the cool magic and stuff into her playstyle and let Jonathan be the ultimate, Belmont in a way. He's got the strongest sub-weapon use out of any classic Vania character, anything like that. He has access to more sub-weapons and usage than any other whip-wielding character. And some of them actually cross over into things that were just single-use items for Alucard in Symphony of the Night. And whereas Charlotte has access to basically every spell that has been utilized by a player character in a Castlevania game, with a few, okay, that's too powerful, or that's too intrinsic to that character, let's shave that off. There are spells that she does that are, again, she can summon different different monsters and things, which Alucard needed like little summoning potions to do. There were things that were, it's kind of pulled from everywhere, or there's some kind of adaptation. So it's something that supports a whole litany of playstyles.
Yeah. And the part, I guess, that would distinguish it from, and thanks for kind of walking me through like the history of those things, because you started naming off like all the ones that I didn't play, so it's good to know.
Fair enough.
So yeah, the thing I guess that distinguishes it in Portrait of Ruin is that you instantly swap between Jonathan and Charlotte. It's just one press of a button, they switch characters.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it too. Like you can be playing as one character and press one button for the other character just to pop in and use their sub weapon or Charlotte's spell, and then they'll disappear again. And you can have them both out at the same time, but they both take damage if you do that. So it's not like a great idea.
Well, if whoever is your AI controlled partner, they take MP damage, whereas you take HP damage. So there's kind of a like, they're not going to get you killed, but they will leave you unable to use whatever cool sub weapon thing you've got going on, which could lead to you getting killed.
Right. So like in a boss fight, there is like some cool stuff that you can do with it. Like you can have a character out and like doing something. Like for example, Charlotte has a spell that like takes a really long time to cast. And there's a part in the game where you need to have her do it in a boss fight. And Jonathan can like protect her while she's doing it. Like, there is some cool stuff that I think if you're like really good at the game, you can set stuff up like that and like kind of play with it a little bit more than I could. For me, it was more like I have it's like swapping loadouts, basically, like you said, from the melee and sub weapon build to the magic build or the utility build, because Charlotte has like buff spells. She has transformation spells. You get them as like Metroidvania upgrades to like turn into a frog and stuff like that. So to me, it was like swapping loadouts, which didn't, I've swapped loadouts in plenty of games. It didn't feel super new to me, but I know that there is like a little bit more to it than I ended up using, specifically with like, hey, this attack is coming. Like you can throw the other character out and let them tank it a little bit. Maybe you'll lose some MP out of it, but if you don't value that, then sure, go for it.
Yeah, there's two bosses in particular that I will not name that I can think of that have a lot of fun with kind of the dual character.
Yeah,
there is
in the
one.
Spoilers, yeah.
There's one boss who, again, playing with who the character is, can charm Jonathan, but not Charlotte.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you need to be careful. But that boss is resistant to a lot of Charlotte's attacks.
Right.
So you need to balance that.
There's a little bit of strategy. What I enjoyed going through the castle was like, you come across enemies and be like, oh man, Jonathan, like I'm using this axe that's killing everything, except for this enemy, the axe is really not doing much. And then you swap to Charlotte and it turns out they're super weak to magic. So then you find yourself in some levels constantly switching between the two of them based on what enemies are out there. And I think stuff like that is really good. What it turns into a lot of times, though, is like Jonathan just cruises through the level and then, oh, there's that one thing that Charlotte's really strong against. So Charlotte comes out for 2 seconds while I kill that thing in one hit, and then Jonathan comes back out. Or vice versa. There's some levels. One of the cool things about it, too, is Charlotte has, with her like spell books, they often do like an arc in front of her and they cover a lot of ground, whereas Jonathan's attacks, it's like the whip straight forward, or maybe he has an axe that does the arc, but it's really slow, and Charlotte's attacks are instant. So for example, in the levels with the flying Medusa heads and stuff like that, maybe you need quick attacks that cover lots of ground more than you need pure damage. So like stuff like that, I find myself switching a little bit more and enjoying it more than just like in some boss fights where it was like I'll use that quick command to have Charlotte do a spell, but it's all Jonathan other than that. That just feels like pressing an extra button to use an extra skill. It doesn't feel like incorporating another character. But there are times when I feel like it's like moment to moment strategizing, and that's kind of what good gameplay is.
Yeah, and it's one of those design things where I think if they filled the game with, all right, how am I going to balance using Jonathan versus Charlotte, it might feel a little tiresome. And I would rather have the joy of, ooh, I got to like switch between them a little bit here. And having the quick switch between them. I mean, watching a speed run of this game, the big speed movement strategy is backdashing while canceling the end animation by switching the characters. And if you've never played this game before, each character, Jonathan or Charlotte, will yell the other person's name as they switch, which, again, never got old for me. It's like, Charlotte, Jonathan, over and over again, did not bother me. And what I just did is slower than how it goes while they're like
watching
backdashing.
Yes.
Yeah. So you just get kind of like a cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, like it just goes. And it's very funny to me. But because they make it so instantaneous, those times where it's, okay, I got to use one or the other, doesn't feel quite so much of a, okay, open up the menu, pick this thing, do that. If it's like you mostly can rock it with Jonathan and you just need whatever Charlotte's spell is, like even the fact that Charlotte learns healing spells, she can cure poison, she can cure the curse condition. If you just give her that in an area where you will often get cursed or poisoned, and you're just like, man, I got hit, hold the R button, she shows up, you're fine. That's faster than going into the menu, choosing the item, and doing that. You keep going. And so for something that on paper can be very clunky, they find a lot of ways to keep it smooth.
No, I totally agree with you. Like, with the amount of ways that you can switch characters and the amount of things that you might want to be doing by switching characters, it's extremely smooth to switch between them.
Yeah.
My one kind of like criticism of this is that I don't think it has the strategic depth, at least in the things that I played, up until doing, the real ending of the game and stuff like that I think it could have. Like, I'm imagining maybe if this was more of an RPG, I imagine like a situation where like this thing has a bunch of armor, use Jonathan to break the armor, and then it's weak to magic after that, or vice versa. Like if there was a boss fight like that or something, what it turns into is like this thing's weak to Jonathan's physical moves, or it's weak to Charlotte's stuff. Generally, like, or both are fine. I found more boss fights where like Charlotte's not doing a whole lot out here as far as damage goes, so it's Jonathan time. If there's a little bit more of that, like one character sets up the other character, I think that would have been really neat. I don't feel like we really get that.
Yeah, and there are times where you get things like that. There are enemies in the game that have such high defense that every attack does 1 damage. Well, the big thing is figuring out, how do we do the most hits? Well, that might require 2 people or require this weapon or this thing. It's little bits of it to probably as far as they were able to go at the time of that kind of strategizing. So, yeah, you're right. There are some fun things they could do, and I think future, not even necessarily Castlevania games, but Metroidvanias or search action games or however you want to call them, I think this concept is still very fertile ground for exploration.
Yeah. I think there was more there for sure. But what we got ended up being like a pretty fun, and to its credit, if it's not the deepest thing, it's very quick, and I never felt like enjoyable. It never felt like it was weighing me down at all. So that's good.
Right, and that's the thing too, where a lot of older games, we'll run into that thing like, God, I really like this. It's again back to Simon's Quest. If all you have to do is change day to night and night to day a little bit faster, and I think a lot of people would be happier with the game. Like those little bits of friction, no game should be frictionless, but there's some that's unnecessary. And Portrait of Ruin it glides in a nice way. Like it is, we've been talking about these sorts of games as comfort food, and that's one of the things that makes Portrait of Ruin so very much that.
actually wanted to talk about this a little bit because of the two kind of tent poles, the namesakes of the Metroidvania type of game, I've noticed, there's a lot of differences between Metroids and Castlevanias, but the primary one that I'm kind of thinking of, especially these games that are in the same era, like they're kind of doing the same sort of thing with their own touches on it. But the Game Boy Advance and the DS era, they're basically making the same type of structure, the same type of game, but with very different feels. And so I mentioned earlier, like the primary kind of feeling I get when I'm playing a Castlevania of this era is cruising. I'm just constantly moving through the castle. I don't stop to attack stuff. I'm jumping and whipping at the same time. Like it's it's got a real momentum to it. Whereas Metroid, maybe bringing it back to that episode we did about the Metroid 2 versions.
Yeah.
One of them was on the DS or the 3DS. And then one of them was kind of modeled around this era of games too.
Yep.
Those are much more like cautious games. Kind of enter a room and take stock before I start moving and shooting. Whereas in Castlevania, I'm flying through doors. I don't stop to look at anything. If an enemy pops out, whip to the face, like generally takes, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 whips to take out most things. Like it's not, there's not a whole lot of danger in your basic rooms in these games. And so I'm jamming to this like really propulsive music and I'm having a great time. And it's for the two games or for the two series, I think that kind of like were mashed together for this type of structure we call a Metroidvania now. On the surface, there's a ton of similarities, but like I found the way that we're playing them to be really different. We've talked about Metroid a lot on the show. Now it's time to talk about Castlevania, at least this era of it.
Yeah, and it's very funny, too, that when you get down to it, both Metroid and Castlevania are exploring horror.
Yeah.
Where and both of them have moments of you enter a room and, what the hell is that? Where Metroid, it's a little bit of run away or a certain kind of like blow it up and avoid it, where the Metroidvania Castlevanias, the Igavanias, are a little more, problem comes along, you must whip it. Like, destroy it all, move along. Where the classic Vanias have a more Metroid style, take it cautious, be a little more methodical, or else you're gonna get in trouble. And I don't think it's a big spoiler to say that when you beat this game, you can unlock a hard mode. And when they do that and they balance it a little differently, you do have to treat it a little more cautiously.
I can imagine.
But they are still stocking the rooms with foes that feels like that big kitchen sink and that big, like, you've got to just take it all on. They're throwing everything at you. Metroid throws a lot of desolation it's punctuated, whereas Castlevania is just meant to overwhelm.
Metroid's a lot more unpredictable as far as like what's going to be in a tunnel or like a room that you go into and stuff like that. Castlevania is a lot more like, I'm in this hallway. It is the same as, 25 other identical hallways in the castle. There's going to be a dude here, and then I'll walk for 3 seconds. There's going to be another dude. The dudes change, but the pacing of the dudes doesn't really change. And they're not going to be like, generally not going to be enemies that I really have to like be careful of. They'll probably die in one hit, honestly, in that type of hallway. So that leads to that kind of propulsive kind of feeling where it's like, I don't have to slow down. We're mowing through this castle, which is very different, but I do appreciate it. Maybe that's why, like, I love the Metroid games of this era too, but I don't know if I'd consider them comfort foods in the same way that I would consider Castlevania. Castlevania is maybe just not asking as much of me in that moment to moment.
Yeah, a lot of the Igavanias give you more, in a way. So there is a point where you are strong enough, powerful enough, skilled enough that you're just kind of like, I am half paying attention while I do this.
Yeah.
And you're just enjoying yourself. But there's usually some aspect, some way that it's like, well, do you want a challenge? You can do this. Or you can check that out, or you can go there. It's part of that kind of come at it how you'd like. We're not forcing you. We want you to be able to finish the game. So you're going to feel powerful by the end, especially if you're used to playing action games, if you're used to Metroidvanias.
Yeah.
And trust me, I'm doing a hard mode run right now, and it is kicking my ass.
Yeah.
And this Portrait of Ruin is perhaps the most more of any of the Igavanias.
Yeah. I guess it's hard to compare. It's been a bit, but I get what you mean. I would say in the regular playthrough, actually, I think I maybe died once in the entire playthrough outside of boss fights. Um, that's that cruising through the castle, kind of like, I know the pace of this. I know the pace of where and how often the things on the wall that I break to get hearts are going to be. It's a real, like, you get in the groove of playing Castlevania, and then you get into a boss fight and suddenly you have to pay attention a little bit more. There's some boss fights that are absolute cakewalks in this game, which I think is good. Like that you fight a Frankenstein's monster in this game, and it's one of the easier boss fights in any Castlevania I think I've ever done.
The big hits are telegraphed, and off you go.
But you get in there, you see the thing, you're like, look at what they put a fucking Frankenstein's monster in the game, and then you have a laugh about it, and then it's probably over soon. There are a bunch, though, where you have to like legitimately learn their moves, and mixed success. Like I said earlier, I don't love all of these. Strangely, though, big surprise to me, final boss in this game I thought was very fun.
Yeah.
Like, the true final boss, it has a move that kills you in one hit, which I'm not crazy about. But other than that, like it's the ideal of like 2D action bosses. They have moves that are telegraphed. They have moves that are dodgeable or avoidable. One of my problems with a lot of Castlevania bosses is like, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do to avoid damage sometimes.
Yeah.
This game doesn't have a whole lot of bosses like that, if any, that I'm trying to pull from memory right now. But like the final boss, the thing that usually would really piss me off in a game like this is a very well designed, like, lot of attacks, but a lot of tells, a lot of ways to avoid it. You just have to learn it. And the time that I beat it, it was like that nice feeling of, I might get tagged once or twice, but this thing really, it doesn't have anything on me. I got this now.
Yeah. And each of those hits hit hard, even the non-one-hit kill.
Yes.
And that one-hit kill move, extremely well telegraphed. And it's something that actually the best way to avoid it is to use both characters.
Yes. Yeah.
Which
in
is
kind
also
of a frantic sort of way that makes sense,
Yes. It's like, I don't think it's spoiling to say that it is something that looms and you need to bat it away.
You'll know it. Yeah.
You'll know it. And so it's coming at you from all sides. How do I hit everything? Teamwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's another one of those. And that was actually the other one I wanted to refer to a little while back. This ties back to the mechanics and themes within the game. No one does it alone.
Yes. Other gameplay things. You mentioned that the castle in this game is relatively small, maybe compared to other Castlevanias, or certainly other Metroidvanias. Like the actual Dracula's castle map is pretty small. You can probably cross it in 5 minutes or so once you've unlocked the whole thing. It's not that big. No. What this game does is it has painted worlds that you go into that have all sorts of different theming and settings. There's one in the like the Egyptian pyramids. There's one that's in like a haunted circus. They really mix up like visual style. They really mix up music with those in very cool ways. I've had the haunted circus song stuck in my head for weeks right now.
It's a good soundtrack. I mean, it's Castlevania, but even for Castlevania, it's a good soundtrack. And much like the fact that the different stages allow for different musical styles, they allow for different settings.
Yes.
If, you can throw as many myths as you want into this gothic castle, but there is going to be a clock tower that's full of spikes and Medusa heads that's meant to knock you into those spikes. You can have, again, one of the problems with recursive referencing to oneself is you start running into some stale ideas. Like, how are you going to keep it interesting or exciting or fresh? Well, let's throw in reasons why you are going completely elsewhere. And I really enjoy it because it also allows for a light level style segmentation. It allows for a little bit of, sometimes there's something fun in, you can just go anywhere in this castle, go nuts, like stuff's crazy. There's also something nice in a little bit of light railroading of, you don't unlock a ton of movement abilities that's gated in the castle because the castle's not that big. So there's a very clear, okay, do this thing, you can now access the first portrait. Cool. After you've beat that, you're going to be able to unlock a thing that will get you to the area that has the second portrait. So you kind of have the castle as a hub world for a handful of like classic Vania-ish stages, little mini Metroidvanias.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that can trip people up in Metroidvanias with large maps is the idea that maybe I just picked up a double jump and there are now 6 places where I go use that double jump to make some sort of progress. However, I only remembered where 4 of them were. And the 2 that I didn't remember, that's the main path. So I'm wandering the castle and I don't know where the fuck to go. Yeah. And I like the feeling of wandering and exploring and just kind of following what I see in a Metroidvania. But it can be frustrating to be like, I just want to find where the next thing is that I need to do in the story. And this game does not have that problem in the slightest because the castle is so small. And those rooms with the paintings, you'll never mistake what those are. They're not super hidden. And those moments when you pick up a new upgrade, like a double jump, you don't have 6 new places to go. You might have 2.
Yes.
And that one of them will lead you to some treasure and one will lead to the next main story painting. And in the next main story painting, you'll get the next upgrade and the cycle continues. And so I think for people maybe who really value that getting lost feeling in a Metroidvania, this might feel a little confining. But for those who don't want to get lost, this will keep you moving forward. Like I said, you're cruising in this game.
Well, and the way that they give you the things opening up or what have you is there is a quest system in this game.
Yes.
There is, you very early on meet a mysterious spirit that faced off against Bronner and fell in the battle. And so held on to himself and is like, well, I can't take him down, but I will help you. If you can, do X, Y, Z, I will teach you these things, give you these things, whatever else. And like you, in fact, in order to get the ability to get to the first painting, you basically do his little tutorial quest, and it's super easy. But to give you the idea of this will get you to places. So that feeling of, okay, well, what can I do with this new ability that I got? Okay, I can double jump. Okay, I can turn into a frog or an owl. You do need flight in these games. It's as it were. But I don't feel it's spoiler. It's an owl, not a bat kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
There we go.
In a Metroidvania, you're going to get an ability to reach places in the ceiling. It's just a thing. You'll get up there.
And that's what it is. And so some of that is not necessarily I'm going to find the new place to go. It's, this is going to let me complete that quest. Some of them you're going to finish just by playing the game, much like that first tutorial one. Some of them, if you're thorough, you're going to accidentally complete some of these. Some of them encourage you to play with the system of the game. You need to do you want to get your health higher? Get your constitution above this level, above this number. Cool. Now you have more health. What do I do about that? Do I play with equipment? Do I use spells? You figure it out. You find out. Some of them are a weird, mysterious thing, like just a funny little, what the hell does that mean? And go and try it out, and it encourages you to search. So you can still be a little lost in a smaller map by this. And by and large, the quests are not required to complete the game, but I do love doing all of them. The reward at the end is fantastic.
Yeah. I remember doing accepting a lot of the quests and reading like what he wants you to do and being like, this is a neat clue. I think I know where to go. I think I know what to do. And we'll see when I get there if my idea is right. Like just opaque enough where they're not literally telling you, go to this section of this map, take off your weapon and beat the shit out of the hams that are hanging off of the hooks. But if you read into the clue enough, you'll get there and then you'll start figuring out, all right, they say I got to make ground meat. How do I do that in here,
Yeah. And it's any fist weapon. So if you also happen to have picked up a fist weapon recently, you might accidentally hit the thing and pick up what you need.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, bring me this item, which you will get later, or it might be a random drop earlier. There's fun to be had there, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that you can occasionally stumble into the solution for something. I do like what the hell am I going to do with this? And then later,
You will be backtracking a little bit, just like all of these games. Like if you like playing these games, I think that's part of the appeal, is backtracking to fully explore a map, or to like use the new ability that you found in that spot that you remember. And the quests give you another thing where it's like, well, I have this painted world. I got 90% completion the first time. I know there's more stuff in there. And I think one of the quests that I have also relates to that area. So another thing for me to do when I go back, besides whip all the walls to try and find, a false wall somewhere.
Yeah. And you will, if you discover one false wall or one false ceiling, floor, whatever, you're going to start to learn the language of how they do it in Portrait of Ruin specifically. There's that as well. And it is very goofy to end up with like, cool, I got 95% map completion. Yeah. But having each one of them have their own 100% also reduces the frustration. And you can easily, there's a map selection on the game menu where you can then go, okay, how much completion do I have of the castle? How much do I have of the Carnival of Fools? How much do I have of these things?
It is nice for people who love to explore and people who love to 100%, maps and stuff like that, to be like, I'm done with the Carnival of Fools. I never need to go back there. When I'm looking at what I've missed, it's not in there. So I can, and it will tell you exactly like which place do I need to go if I, if I'm looking for upgrades or if I'm just motivated by 100%ing the thing. We can do that.
Yeah, that is very fun. I do love being thorough in a game, but I've got my limits. I don't need to complete the sphere grid for everybody in Final Fantasy X. I don't care that I get a trophy for it. I have a life to lead. Whereas this gives you hey, there is so much in this game, but we segment it enough so that you're not uselessly running through all 10 maps trying to find one thing, where you can pretty clearly go, it's in one or two, maybe three of these.
And also, like, you probably should be backtracking a little bit and exploring because, kind of like you said, the final boss and a lot of the bosses, they hit really hard. So you're incentivized to get stronger. And you'll find really good equipment by going back to old areas and exploring. You'll level up if you keep killing stuff. You'll find like health and MP upgrades as you go. So like character, like avatar strength is really important in Castlevania. It's, I think like skill in learning those boss fights is more important, but unless you play perfectly, you are going to take a lot of damage when you get hit. So it's worth it to beef your characters up a little bit too.
Yeah, you can learn your way through like the hard mode in this game. You can set the level cap to 1. You can set it up so that that's not the only option, but that is an option. And so you can play this game and never level up. So truly you can skill your way through it. Or you can beef up your stats and let things be a little more forgiving, fewer hits to defeat the bosses. You can go about it whichever way you want.
Yeah.
And there is that encouragement. And doing the quests have some of the strongest rewards in the game. The rewards are very much worth the effort if you choose to do them and if you are back against the wall on that.
Yeah.
They give you options.
Yeah. One other thing I guess I'll just throw out there, because I play a lot of Metroidvanias. It's one of my favorite types of games. And one of the things that I praise certain Metroidvanias for is the upgrades that you get being more than keys per se. Like the double jump is obviously like a very useful combat maneuver as well.
Yeah.
And this game has one of them that I can't remember if like the super jump is a quest reward or if it's like an upgrade that you pick up.
Oh, the big uppercut thing?
Yeah.
I think that's just something you pick up.
Yeah. That's good because I found that to be really useful in the final boss.
Oh my God, yeah.
The other upgrades that you get feel useless in combat in a way that I don't think is great.
Right.
They're a way to get a treasure in these 4 rooms around the map. Otherwise, you're not going to be faced with a really strong attack in the final boss fight and be like, time to turn into an owl in this situation. It's just not, it doesn't have that utility that I really like in a lot of these games. Same with like one of your abilities that you get is being able to push heavier stuff, which is just, you unlock 2 rooms in the castle by including the critical path by doing that.
And I think I forgive those a little more. I'm very much with you, Dave, on I want these things to matter. One of the things I loved about playing Animal Well was the sheer breadth of application of everything you find. And it's a non-combat game, but the
same concept. Like you pick up the bubble wand in Animal Well and you don't know all the possibilities, but you now have a world of possibilities.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but I think because several of the traversal things you get, like turning into the frog, turning into the owl, being able to jump off of your partner's shoulders if they're there, pushing heavy objects. Like, again, these aren't spoilers. These are just things you unlock. They're not tied to a button. It's not like playing Metroid Dread where they went, okay, we have used every single button that the Switch has. And you might use one of these abilities once every other hour. Did you remember how to do that special thing? Like, versus, well, I'm going to push the thing. Well, let me call my partner to push the thing. Okay, cool. Now we're stronger, can actually push the thing. That it's frictionless. So they're not asking me to like choose some big crazy, like go through this, do this, something complicated. It just is. Most of the time, like the forms are a little more awkward, but also they take up the same slot as a combat spell. Like I'm not necessarily going to want to turn into a frog while fighting a foe, but I am going to want to summon a yawning void of darkness that will suck in everything or whatever,
Yeah. And just as an example.
As an example. But you're right. That uppercut, that rising fire, whatever thing that you get, the upward mobility, that is super useful. And it's something that is tied to a button press that is not taken up by anything else. I think they knew which things you always wanted at the ready and would have applications elsewhere. I think I'm a little more forgiving for it because of how they parse them out on the gamepad versus their application in the game.
That's a good point. The ones that you need all the time, you don't have to keep them equipped, for example. Like
they're just there.
That is good design for sure. I just I find myself really, really appreciating the ones that are like this thing. Yes, it unlocks those areas that you couldn't get to before, but also you'll find yourself leaning on them in other situations for other utility and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you're right that it's certainly not a detriment, but it is a missed opportunity.
The only thing I haven't mentioned yet, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, is I think this game looks incredible. And just another example of pixel art being timeless. And especially like by the time you get to like the DS, the Game Boy Advance, pixel art is just, they've taken a little bit of extra resolution and just turned it into the most beautiful pixel art you've seen until, indie games these days are really doing some shit with in HD 2D games and stuff like that.
Of course.
They're doing stuff with pixel art. But I fire up a Castlevania and I start seeing all the enemy designs in this wonderful pixel art. And I'm like, it's just such, I walk into a room, I may not have to pay attention to the enemy for because they're going to kill me easily in combat, but I sure want to see that design. This is one where I would look through the bestiary or a wiki or something and just be like, man, look at that Minotaur design. Look at that big fucking skeleton that just rose out of the sand in the desert level. Like,
Yeah.
all that stuff is so awesome.
Yeah, and I think to the benefit of reusing some of these sprites from previous games, they've got the design. The design is good, and I'm sure they improve on them for resolution or not. But what it does allow is more animations. You've got more space, and you've already got the bulk of it. Like if you take a lot of these enemies and just throw them in as is, they look good. They feel good. And there is somebody who is doing a Sega Genesis demake of Symphony of the Night. And the way that you can actually make all of that work, like in a level-based structure, but so much of the beauty of that game can still work on the Sega Genesis. If you remove frames of animation, it still looks good and plays well and feels good. But if you know what the PlayStation did, you notice the absence. And so if there's no absence to notice, it still looks good. But they definitely have added frames for some of the more notable enemies. And the way that all of those little poses and all those little things they add are, those flourishes, they feel so good.
Yeah, they're awesome. I think I'm glad that you've mentioned like the reuse and kind of touching up of assets from previous games. I mean, I'm looking at the series timeline here, and Circle of the Moon was 2001, Harmony of Dissonance was 2002, Aria of Sorrow was 2003, Dawn of Sorrow 2005, Portrait of Ruin 2006, Order of Ecclesia 2008. Like, that is a lot of games, just the 2D ones. That's a lot of games in not a lot of time. And it's just smart game development to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, we praise the Yakuza series for doing a similar thing in today's day and age. That's how they get games out with regularity.
Yeah. If they're good assets, use them.
Yeah. And then to your point, I think you can notice some of that quality, especially with animations, maybe because they don't have to draw all the skeletons from scratch in every single game. Now they're like, I had a funny animation for that skeleton sprite we had in the last game. Yeah. What if they did this and it's awesome?
Yeah,
and
add an attack.
Now it's something where I walk in a room, I see, like I keep bringing up the Invisible Man enemy, but like I see the Invisible Man, he's got a coat on, he takes his coat off, drops it, and he's just gone. And I'm like, fuck, it's such a great little animation. And oh shit, he's hitting me now.
Right.
I don't know where he is, but
if you don't get him immediately, and there's still a little bit of that like Predator shimmer.
Yeah.
But
just
on a DS
bit.
screen. Yeah. I'm sure it shows up better on the Dominus collection on an HD screen, but we don't know. But it's, a lot of those really play out nicely, and they continue to have a joy of recognition. And there is, again, when you have so many things, as there are so many enemies and items and things that are in this game, as there are in many Vanias, recognizing something and going, oh, I remember encountering that. Like, there is an enemy that's been there since definitely Symphony of the Night, possibly earlier, called the Dodo. It is a little bird thing with a weird green human face. There's usually only one of them that shows up in the game, which means it respawns every time you leave and re-enter the room, but there's only one spawn point. It just kind of walks in. If it sees you, it like kind of screams and runs away. It's not there to hurt you. But if you go and get it, chances are it drops something really cool. So if you're walking around, they're usually in a chaotic room. And so you might be so focused on things, you don't notice it the first or fifth time. But when you are aware of what it is and aware of what it can be, anytime you see it later, you're like, Dodo, getting you.
That's that thing. It rewards the people who've been there for a while too. Like, it's nice to kind of be back in the castle and see all my old skeleton friends. Like this may be a different game. It's like, it's like seeing my favorite actors in a different movie. Like, I've seen your other movies, and this is going to be, different enough, but I know who you are,
I like
stuff
what
like
you
that.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. I like your game. Yeah. So it's really cool. And seeing the timeline of the GBA and the DS Castlevanias laid out like that really was just like, man, they were pumping these out. I've played
Yeah.
I played all the ones on the GBA. Now I've got a couple DS ones to play to fully catch up. But it's like fast iteration on ideas and some different stuff in the meantime, but that core stays really, really consistent for spanning 2 consoles here at the very least.
Yeah, and they knew what they were working with there and had enough of a like, okay, what are we really gunning for on this one? What are we trying to do? Like, Aria and Dawn of Sorrow had a whole cool system. It was the only Castlevania set in the future. It had a whole bunch of things going on, and they reached an end point of the cool things they could do there without it becoming a completely different game. The next one, Portrait of Ruin, they kind of go, all right, how many Castlevania games can we reference at once? The answer might surprise you. Let's go.
I got curious there when you said they're set in the future. It's always funny when games are set in the future and it's like, no, that was actually 15 years ago for us. Nope, they're still in the future.
It's like 2035?
2035 and 2036. Yeah.
Yes.
So
and because those games were released before Portrait of Ruin, they actually can make reference to them in this game. And they do. Jonathan has the vampire killer. Like, oh, well, what's going to happen to it, whatever else. It's just like, well, there's a prophecy that, like, the Belmonts will take it up in the year 1999, which is a big deal in the Sorrow games. Like, I think that is the one Belmont adventure we're never getting a game for. Like, they've talked about how cool it is and how strong Julius Belmont is and everything else. We're not getting that. This is the strongest whip wielder we're going to get.
Yeah.
But they can still reference a game set in the future. Because of prophecy.
Love it. So I think with those things being said and kind of landing on this idea that they have like this core identity of Castlevania, they're trying out different ideas as they go, especially in this era, very rapid iteration on ideas. And they have those core things like ready to go. Like we said, they've got the enemies, they've got the tile sets for the castle, they've got their different stories that they're telling and stuff like that. Is there a reason why you would recommend specifically that someone play Portrait of Ruin instead of a different Castlevania game, especially within the same era?
I would say that this one is probably my favorite balance of story and gameplay.
Okay.
It is the most Castlevania of any of these games. Like, that is not to say better or worse. Like, that, we're throwing that out the window.
But
as the most Castlevania. Do you want to reference Castlevania Bloodlines, the Sega Genesis one? Well, here's the son of that character. Do you want the usual bosses from the first Castlevania to show up? Of course they show up here. Do you want a nonlinear exploratory nature of Simon's Quest? Absolutely. It's a Metroidvania. It's got those things. Do you want character changing like Castlevania 3? Hell yeah, buddy. Here it is. Do you want, like, it is just hit after hit after hit as far as, and again, this is a Metroidvania Castlevania, an Igavania, and we have had whip wielders, and we've even had a Belmont in Just in Harmony of Dissonance. But this one, yet again, what's your favorite subweapon? Jonathan can use it.
It's here, yeah.
What's your favorite weapon type? Someone's got it. What's your favorite spell? It's here somewhere. Like, and they make it readable and reachable, and even the Nest of Evil, the unlockable area that you did not explore, is, again, it's an optional, like, super dungeon. There is no story or design to it other than here is a descending arena filled with everything. Are you mad that you didn't see this one enemy in the game? Oh, they're here. Like, bosses from previous titles are here. There's a boss rush mode that you can unlock. It's got a sense of history. Like, this is the Castlevania that they made for the 20th anniversary of Castlevania. If you want one game that's going to, like, throw a lot at you and what you enjoy from this, there's another Castlevania to jump off of that's a little more in that vein. This is a great first Castlevania for people, but it's I don't often hear it recommended that way.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't hear people talk about this. I was kind of surprised, like, because the way that my Patreon polls work is that certain patrons can just pick from my big list of games in my library and put them in the polls. And I'm kind of surprised that this is the one that came up because no one talks about it. It's all, Aria of Sorrow, I think of this era is probably the most like acclaimed. People seem to like
Brilliant
Order of
game.
Ecclesia a lot. Yeah, Aria of
Yeah.
Sorrow rocks.
Yeah.
And then of course Symphony of the Night of this this kind of second era of Castlevania. But I was kind of surprised this got brought up, but I totally agree with what you said there that like it's kind of like whatever you liked about a previous Castlevania game, it's in this game somewhere.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. It's honestly, Symphony of the Night, we were talking about this before we started recording. It is one of my perennial favorite games of all time, TM. Like, I love that game. If there's a Castlevania game I've played more than any other, it's that one. If there's one I go back to like as just sheer comfort food, it's that one. I've got a save file from when I was in high school that I still have, that I still will level up in. I'm still like I will play it until I get 99 of everything droppable. Like this is foolishness, but I will do it because it pleases me. But there's flaws in it. There's things that they do that are so cool but just fall short. Portrait of Ruin does several of them and actually does them better. I'm not going to say which ones for spoiler reasons, but like there's actually refinement is the word of the day for Portrait of Ruin.
Yeah. I've kind of said this. I'm not fully prepared to like defend this with Castlevania, but I've definitely said this about Metroid and several other like very long running series, especially ones that like found themselves an identity that they stuck with for a really long time. Is I feel like a lot of these series, Zelda included, I feel like a lot of these series just get better as they go. And that one that's like the pivotal landmark defining one is not necessarily to me the best one in most of these cases.
They're important, yes.
Yes. I mean, I would never deny the importance of a Super Metroid or a Castlevania of the Night or a Link to the Past. But to me, later games refined on those and did those things better. So I think I agree with you here. And I'm not Symphony of the Night's biggest fan, although it's been a long time since I played it. So I was telling you again before we recorded, it's one of those games that in the back of my head, I got that voice being like, well, now you have the podcast. You have the ultimate reason to really dive in and see, and then talk for 2.5 hours about it,
Yeah, I one of the side quests that I've done for my own podcast feed was Symphony of the Night. Like, if I had to pick a Castlevania to talk about, it's that one. As flawed as it is, as beautiful as it is, like, it's, it's that thing of, the band's first album that, like, it's not perfect, but, like, you feel so much of it. But a game is not an album. There are many things in common, but those sorts of refinements for the experience, it's the... do I recommend people go back and play Pokemon Red and Blue? No. No.
Is a tough recommend, no matter how sentimental those are. Yeah, I get you there. So specifically talking about like who would I recommend play Portrait of Ruin, I honestly, I don't know that I would recommend this over different Castlevania games of the era, but this is certainly not a bad one to start with. And it's, if you've played some others and maybe you haven't played one on the DS. I mean, I think this is a pretty good game, and you could play a lot worse games, that's for sure.
Well, and because this is the easiest modern way to play this is on the Dominus Collection.
Yeah.
If you are looking at Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia, and yes, Haunted Castle. It's Haunted Castle is the other thing that's on it, right? The arcade game?
It's something that's not related to the rest of them, yeah.
And something else. And they're here too. But the 3 DS titles, if you've got that in a single place, amazing. Like, that's going to give you... The 3 GBA Igavanias are very cool. They're very fun. Circle of the Moon's got its defenders and its detractors. But there again, they are very much, however, refining on each other. I feel like the 3DS Igavanias are wildly different in how they approach the idea of a Castlevania. So even if Portrait of Ruin isn't the first one or your favorite one of the 3 on the Dominus collection, if you're curious about Castlevania, I would recommend the Dominus collection as where to get started.
Yeah, that's very fair. I feel like the GBA collection's pretty good too. Like, I think those games are awesome. And so
Same.
it's just, I mean, for me, someone who just played this as the first DS Vania that I've played, it's good to play it and be like, they just continued making good ass games on the next one too. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. There's so many games in such a short period of time. It's hard for me to like really say like, this is the specific group of people that Portrait of Ruin is going to appeal to over the other ones. But throw a dart at a Castlevania in this era and you'll get a good game out of it. So why not this one? It doesn't feel like the most ringing endorsement, but it is a game that I think if you think you'll like it, you probably will. So, there you go.
It's like, I don't know. Do you like the voice work of Liam O'Brien? He voices Jonathan. Like, I can't remember anybody else in the cast, but I was playing Persona 3 recently, so I recognized his voice and going back to this.
Yeah. So we do have a spoiler section ahead of us for the rest of the discussion about Portrait of Ruin. It'll be shorter by Tales from the Backlog standards, but before we get there, we do need to talk about the work that Jen does over on Fun and Games podcast. So Jen, please tell the people about Fun and Games and where they can find it.
Absolutely. Fun and Games is a discussion and interview podcast with an optimistic view of video games, with the idea that no one can play every video game out there, and every video game could be somebody's favorite. So we like to talk about all the big and little things within gaming. We love indie games. We like having creators and directors and composers and everyone else within the gaming space, especially the indie gaming space, on to talk about what they love in gaming and what brings them to the things they create. And to that optimistic view, we also have a sub-series called Side Quests, where it's a different host every episode talking about a video game they love and why they love it. As I alluded to before, one of the ones that I myself did was for Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which is, one of my favorite games. Not always my favorite, but one that I think is worth knowing and worth talking about. So I chose to do it there. If you want to find Fun and Games podcasts, it's anywhere you can find podcasts. We have our own Discord. We're part of the Certain POV network. If you want to find things that I myself am working on, I am a voice actor. You can visit genmoonen.com. Not much of a site right now, but I'm always working on it. And you can find me on social media as Noise Generator with a silent G at the front. And you can find the podcast as Fun and Games Pod on those same platforms.
Absolutely. Quality work over on Fun and Games. I feel like I shout out the podcast often. And you've been on the show a couple times this year. Your podcast partner, Matt Storm's been on the show a couple times this year. There's going to be more running through my schedule in my head. You probably heard Matt last month, and there will be more Matt in your future.
Matt is a very avid and social podcaster, and I'm just the fun cryptid.
I put out the call for Castlevania, and you crawl out and you're like, someone say Castlevania.
I responded within like 2 minutes.
Yes.
I knew
I knew when typing that, I was like, I bet Jen's gonna see this, and I can't wait. But yeah,
you didn't have to.
Right. So it's funny how that worked out, but it just worked out exactly how I thought it would. And I'm glad to have you here for the episode, of course.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and just recommend people check out Fun and Games for the discussion episodes. I recently shouted out your Mini Shoot Adventures developer interview, as I did my own episode about that game. And then the Side Quest series is just a beacon of positivity. And we have on this show, I like most of the games I play, and there's criticisms abound. And then sometimes it's just nice to listen to someone talk for 10 minutes about why they think Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness is really kick-ass. It's a recent one. I think I listened to that this morning.
I like that one a lot. That was a good one. And it's a great way to find new and old games, because there's no, did it come out last week and you're just really hot on it, or is it one of your favorite games from your childhood? It's a great way for me to find PS2 games that I missed, because my God, there are a lot of those games.
Yeah, and everyone's got that weird ass PS2 game that they love that no one else played, you know?
Yeah. Like, I thought I knew every obscure RPG on the PS2, and I keep being wrong, and I
Uh-huh.
couldn't be happier about it.
Yes. So I'll put links in the show notes for Jen on social media and for Fun and Games podcast, so people can go find that. While the spoiler stuff is playing, maybe queue up a few podcast episodes so you have something to listen to, whether you're jumping out for spoilers or after the episode is over. So with that being said, I did most of my podcast plugs at the top of the show. The last one I didn't say is that we have a public Discord server for Tales from the Backlog, where we talk about a lot of stuff. It's a very active place. And if you want to join the podcast community, a group of like-minded people that have gathered up around the show and around our group, we would love to have you. And there is an invite link in the show notes as well. So with that being said, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, it will be full spoiler time for Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. All right, before we get to full spoiler time for Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, I'd like to give a quick announcement about a guest appearance I did and the customary thank yous to the patrons. So once again, I am over on the Nostalgium Arcanum podcast, and if you can believe it, I'm talking about Final Fantasy X. I know it's very out of character for me, but I am on Nostalgium Arcanum running through Final Fantasy X, talking about our nostalgic memories. That was a good time, so please head over to the link in the show notes for that episode of Nostalgium Arcanum. And as always, I'd like to say thank you to the patrons who help support the show. A big hearty thank you and shout out goes out to Chris Nelson, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Nick Vicori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Drellish, Rigamort, Silcanet, Levi, John E., Aliasi, Aaron, Alan Kress, Doug T., Retro Overdrive, Magic Crow, Curly Bright, Ian L., Steve Yeager, Trash Dog Actual, Delaney and Jack McBride, Michael Lassen, Michael Matuzak, Keith B., A Quack a Day, Jake Martin, Mike Kniff, Kugel, and many more. Once again, I thank you for your support. It means the world to me, and it helps out in a lot of different ways. So if you out there would like to join them, you can do so at patreon.com/realdavejackson, where in return for throwing me a few bucks a month, you will also get some treats. So once again, thank you for considering that. Head on over to patreon.com/realdavejackson to check it out. And with all that being said, let's get back to full spoiler time for Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. All right, we're back. It's full spoiler time for Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. And before we get started, the usual disclaimers. Number one, we're not walking through the game in the order that you do things in the game. We may talk about late game things or the end of the story soon, so this is a full spoiler warning. And the other thing is, well, I've already kind of expressed my disdain for Castlevania stories, which means I wasn't locked in for every moment. I'm not going to talk about everything that happened in the story.
Yeah.
That's never what this podcast is anyway, but just a general, like, there might be some stuff we don't talk about. Please extend me some grace that that's not the type of show I'm trying to make. So.
And if you're the person that is like, why aren't you obeying the canon of Castlevania? I think I might want to talk to you, but from a distance. Like, I want to know what's up.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could hold your own in a conversation like that, Jen.
I could and I would.
Certainly not me. Yeah.
Right. It's like, I want to run into this person at a convention. Like, I want to have that kind of like, oh my gosh, let's like info dump on each other and go crazy and like go whatever. Cool.
Cool. That's not what we're doing on Tales from the Backlog, though.
No.
So with that being said, we're going to start with something easy and fun. What's your favorite painted world? There are 4 of them. And then they get kind of remixed later in the game in a way that I don't love. It feels a little bit like we're padding the game to me, but I'm happy to be back in the circus. So I don't know. What's your favorite?
Yeah. I would... I mean, it's boring, but yeah, no, it is absolutely the circus. Look, I am also a nightlife performer and somebody who has circus skills and loves performance. So anything that's got like an old creepy carnival atmosphere to it, it's not always going to be my favorite, but it's got points in its favor. And it's the one that really explores it's a big loop. It is a big wheel. The perspective shifts as you move on. Like you are still continually oriented the way that you are, but the world isn't.
Yep.
Which is
walking on the ceilings and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, super fun. You are, and in the first iteration of it, you are never far from the boss room, but you need to get all the way around it to get to it. And it is Legion, which is one of my favorite bosses because it is just so fucking weird.
Yep.
It's just
it's in a lot of Castlevania games, and I'm never mad. I don't always love the way that the fight works, but I'm never mad to see that design. Legion, if for those who don't know, is a big just conglomeration of bodies all packed together into a ball.
Yeah. Yeah, the original name, localized name for it when it first showed up in Symphony of the Night was Granfalloon, which is a reference to a Kurt Vonnegut novel. The literary references that went on in the Symphony of the Night localization are a whole ass thing. Like that's a college course on its own. But yeah, no, it's this suitably like it is easily parsed what it is. And it's delightfully creepy every time you see it. There's laser shooting tentacles under the bodies. Like there's no part of this fight that isn't somehow weird.
Yep. One of its primary attacks, if you're standing under it, is just to rain bodies on top of you, which is great.
And if you knock those bodies down, they're going to move around and you've got to deal with them too. Like it's a whole thing. And if you're going to have a callback boss like that, and Castlevania does those plenty, the Carnival of Fools is the Nation of Fools, I think it's called, is absolutely where you want that. You've got the perspective thing going on. It's a whole big circle. Why not a big circle of bodies? Yes. Yeah, this is so fucking weird. And I will say, again, like we were talking about before, that kind of not necessarily bad, but maybe missed opportunity, but whatever. I feel like the 4 remixed portraits are kind of a reference to the reverse castle from Symphony of the Night. Symphony of the Night has this is the end point, and it's got a little bit of an unsatisfying ending unless you do some conditions and like, oh, there's more, and it's the castle, but upside down. Well, this has a similar kind of boss fight. Once you're past that, oh, these are harder, and these are a little more. I think they actually do if you think about them as a refinement of the reverse castle, they do a great job, but they do feel a little like padding. It's a bit of both.
Yeah, I think the game is fun and pleasing to be in, so I wasn't like mad that I had to do 4 of them, but in the middle of the third one, I start to feel it a little bit because by that point, you don't have a lot of other castle to explore. It's just do the 4 paintings in a row and then you're on to the final boss. So just doing them all in a row like that is when I start to feel like, do we really need to remix these?
Yeah.
But if I get to spend 20 more minutes listening to that song in the haunted carnival level, then I'm happy because that song is great.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and the nice thing too is when you finish those remix portrait stages, you can choose to come back to the castle, do what you want there, or they have it set up so you can kind of move on to the next one in order.
Yeah, right away. Yeah.
So you're able to kind of turn it into a like classic Vania stage to stage feeling.
Yep.
And the other nice thing that they do that I actually really appreciate is the things that you unlock when beating each of these really help with the vampire killer quest.
What do you unlock?
It's not necessarily an unlock. It's, well, again, we're jumping around on stories here. The way that you empower the vampire killer and make it into the legendary whip is by you have to do something so that it recognizes Jonathan as its master. And the way that it does that is by defeating the last Belmont to wield it, which is Richter Belmont. Cool. You get to fight Richter. He's really hard.
Yeah. And insanely hard.
Yeah. So you usually have to cheese the fight one way or the other. But he is a holy elemental warrior. He's a holy warrior, and very much in the same way as when you fight him in Symphony of the Night. So one of the first things you beat the first of these portraits, and you get a whip that uses the dark element. It has the same reach that Richter does, so you're on equal footing there, and it does bonus damage to him. Okay, the armor that you get in the next area is heavily resistant against holy attacks. Cool, you can survive a little more of what's going on, and so forth and so on. So you can choose to, but you have to balance that against the fact that, okay, as soon as you defeat Richter, you have unlocked the full power of the vampire killer. There are a few weapons that have a higher raw attack power, but none of them are a whip. None of them are the vampire killer. This thing, it is aces the rest of the game. You can, as soon as you awaken the vampire killer, you can have a great time using that. Who cares the rest of the game unless you choose to? So the sooner you defeat Richter, the sooner you can have fun with the vampire killer.
Yep.
But the longer you wait, the easier the fight's going to be. Not just for levels, but for what these stages give you.
Yeah. That's true. And I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I kind of just like to be using a whip in a Castlevania game. It feels like
good.
It was made for it.
Right.
So I did want the vampire killer powered up as soon as possible. So what I did is I went into that dream and fought Richter a couple times and just got my ass handed to me over and over again until I got to that point where I was like, I don't think I'm going to get to a point where he doesn't kill me in 3 hits. So what else can I do? And then I looked up and I found the cream pie strategy, which I should give a little bit more explanation for.
Yeah, please don't just leave it at that.
I think I'm going to take a walk and let people imagine what the cream pie strategy is. Caught you off guard there. One of the sub weapons is a cream pie that you pick up, a literal, a tin with a cream pie in
like
it.
something a clown would throw.
Yeah, exactly. A practical, a slapstick comedy joke for the ages, hitting someone in the face with a pie. And so you pick that up and you use it, and it's dog shit. It does 2 damage to everything you use it with. This game does have that system where you gain experience or familiarity or mastery or whatever it's called with sub-weapons the more you use them. The cream pie does not have a very high requirement to master it.
No.
And it does dark elemental damage. So Richter is canonically weak to cream pies. And so that's what I did is you jump, you toss a couple out. They have a very predictable arc and they fall, they hit him in the face. And if you learn to dodge his attacks and you learn the right time to jump and throw the cream pies out, then that's how I beat Richter. And I love the flavor text description of the cream pie sub weapon says something to the effect of like humiliates whoever gets hit by it. So canonically, in my story, Jonathan travels into the dream to fight the last Belmont, humiliates him by hitting him with about 75 cream pies in the face until he dies, and you get to power up the whip.
Jonathan, through the sheer grit of like young teenage protagonist anime power, just goes into a dream world and just starts screaming over and over, "You ain't shit, Richter! You ain't shit! Look at me! Look at me! I use the whip now!" Just throwing cream pies in his face, just pieing him in the face.
In Disco Elysium, how you can die if Kuno insults you too much, you just die of embarrassment. I think that's what happened to Richter in this game. You threw too many pies in his face. Yeah. So that's what I did. Very funny that's like, I checked multiple GameFAQs forums. They all suggest the cream pie method, which is poor phrasing, but But
we're choosing it here.
Yes.
Oh, and I think it's because it is very easy to get. You find it in the first portrait. It's a little out of the way, but it's super easy to get. So it's not one of those things where you need to be at a certain point in the game. If you are dealing with the whip's memory, you've already passed by where you pick this up. Yeah. And the mastery system for sub-weapons, everything, if you use the sub-weapon on an enemy and then kill them, you don't have to finish them with it. But if you hit them with it and then kill them, it will gain anywhere from 1 to 20 points, depending upon who you're fighting. Yeah. Most enemies do up to 10, but sometimes there's some whatever. There's an area where you fight 2 minotaurs in a room. They each give you 10. Like, that's the big grind spot towards the end of the game.
That's the spot.
That's the sweet spot. But in But again, you're getting 20 at a time because some of these take up to like 2,000, 3,000 experience points. The cream pie only requires 100. That first portrait has areas with infinitely respawning zombies. Who cares if they only give you 1 experience point at a time? Throw the cream pie, kill the zombies. You will level that thing out in 5 to 6 actual real world minutes.
Yep.
And all the sub-weapons, something I really like about them is they actually, like, as you reach percentage points, they do get stronger incrementally. It's not just a 0 to 100.
Right.
It is a gradient. So it gets easier. And then when you master them, something changes about the attack pattern. A lot of the weapons, they just get bigger. Some of them, if you throw a few things, you now throw more of them. Like, something gets added onto it. So it's easy to master, so it's at max damage, and it's got a bigger hitbox. Cool. Yeah. Let's go embarrass the Belmonts.
Yeah, yes. Until I can power up the whip. And so what also is part of this is like there's the story with the whip that you learn Jonathan's father died as a result of using the whip when he's not a Belmont either. He's John Morris. And he died because he made the choice, even though the whip, if you're not a Belmont, they say in the game it takes something from you. And so kind of the idea of like, I don't know, sapping your life force or something. And he decided it's still worth it to use the whip to defeat Dracula. And then he died because of it. So Jonathan now has unlocked the power of the vampire killer. That very same whip, he can now use it. And he mentions something when you first power it up. Someone says something like, it'll take something from you too.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's worth it to kill Bronner and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, at that point, kill Dracula.
Yeah. And then that bit of storytelling is never mentioned again. And that's, I think, a huge missed opportunity for either storytelling like stakes for Jonathan. Even after you beat the game, they never mention it. Or I thought it would have been really neat if this tied into gameplay in a certain way where like I was trying to figure out like what would be a satisfying way to feel that the whip is hurting Jonathan or taking something from him. If your health were constantly draining, that's not great. I don't think we want that. What if it did 1 HP every time you swing the whip? Because when I fought the final boss, I think I had 700 hit points. So it's like, that's not going to be the reason I die, but I feel it. Maybe you could even see the health bar tick down a little bit if you use it 4 or 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think that there's opportunity for storytelling, like explicit, like in a cutscene and via gameplay. Because I used the whip for all 4 of those portraits and the final boss and was just kind of like, when's the other shoe going to drop? And it never drops, at least as far as I know. So a little bit of a missed opportunity, I think.
Yeah, and if they had it in such a way where wielding the whip isn't going to drop you to 0 hit points, but will drop you to 1, that could be interesting. I do think having it just be referenced in story is fine, but I think they should have referenced it more in story. Where
give me something.
Give me something. Because like in Castlevania Bloodlines, John Morris is using the fully powered vampire killer, and it's not doing that to him. It would feel a little worse for Jonathan to have to deal with it. So that's perfectly fine for me. But at least, they have enough little changes that can happen in the ending based on certain choices. Not a ton, but they already have 1 or 2 that I think having some different dialogue based on whether or not you unlock the vampire killer would be kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's just one extra thing, after you beat the final boss and the castle collapses or whatever, like if a character, whether it's Charlotte or one of the girls or something, if a character was like, oh man, Jonathan, you don't look so good. Like, just say something like that. And I'd be like, oh shit, the whip it's doing something to him too.
Yeah. I don't need it to affect gameplay necessarily. Like I want to feel cool using the vampire killer, and then I want to feel bad about being cool using the vampire killer. Like, that's the order. And even the way that it's described by Eric, talking about it's like, well, we noticed that after the fight, after defeating Dracula together, that John's wounds just were not healing. Like, there again, you can match it to the same energy that you kind of are setting up for Bloodlines. It's like, okay, have Jonathan have, a rough go of it after the fact. That's just as easy. That's one where, yeah, I will say it's a complaint.
Yeah, I'm just kind of a sicko for like, hey, if you have something that like story-wise physically affects the character, like it's okay to make me feel that. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm one of the rare people out there who really doesn't mind when a game is like, oh, your character is injured, they're going to move really slowly for like this 30-second bit. Like I know a lot of people hate those. I don't care. I think I'm like, oh shit, Kratos is fucked up right now or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I'm here for some verisimilitude in my gameplay.
Yeah.
Make me feel the story.
Yeah, exactly. Or, there's part in Metal Gear Solid 4 that we talked about that takes fucking forever because Snake's having a terrible time.
Yeah.
And I feel that, and I think it's nice. I think it's good.
That's the point. Yeah. And those are those things where I feel where they place the vampire killer in the order of the game, having it be a thing where it's like, oh man, I'm suffering a bit. All of that cruising and everything that we were talking about beforehand, gone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you now know who is going to use the vampire killer after that. Like, we need to, let's have some determination here.
Yeah, I don't know. What if Jonathan just like doubled over and started coughing or some shit? I don't know. Like as soon as you got, I don't know if that's like if that's the solution, but something.
I think a little more explicit cutscene acknowledgement. I don't think it needed. If I'm allowed to go back and change whatever I want about this game, I don't think I would change its gameplay effects, but I would change how it is referenced and impacted in story.
I realized I'm breaking my nobody can talk other than Dracula rule with what I'm wishing for here, but
if you're gonna put the story there, do the damn story. If there's no story, don't talk. And
Agreed.
In fact, did you ever use the talk function in the menu?
No, I do know that Charlotte and Jonathan have like a lot of lines based on what's going on in the story, but I never used it.
Yeah, I didn't find as many of those as I wanted to, but they can reference things, and they do talk to each other during boss fights. Like, it's, again, to reference Metal Gear again, like, sometimes during a boss fight, I don't need advice. I just want to know what you think about Psycho Mantis.
Yeah.
What are your
this
feelings?
Sucks, doesn't it? Yeah,
doesn't
sure
this
does.
Suck?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, man, Jonathan's been enchanted by the boss of the pyramids. Charlotte's pissed about it, and just like cuts to him, just being like, yes, my mistress. What the hell, man?
Yeah, that was a fun one in a boss fight where because I died a couple times from Jonathan getting charmed.
Yeah.
And was just like, well, because you can't switch characters if you're charmed. Like, so it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to? Oh, wait, that's Medusa charming the man. Switch to the woman. And yeah, there we go.
Yeah. And like, look, I've got all sorts of reasons to feel all kinds of ways about gender in games. But like, if they're going to, they went for it. And they stuck by their guns. And you know what? I like what they did.
I think it's, regardless, I think it's kind of a neat thing that like Jonathan's characterization is he's like this headstrong rushing into, not thinking things through type of person. And he's the one of the two. He's the one who would get charmed by the Medusa.
Exactly.
Regardless of anything else.
And if you like win the fight after he's been charmed, he definitely has just like oh, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Ugh.
my bad.
Oh, geez, my bad. Yeah. He's impulsive. He's never a dick.
Yeah.
It's like hey, calm down. Oh, wow. Yeah, sorry about that. Wow. Got lost.
The story, other than the stuff with the vampire killer, which I think that's the most interesting part of the story. The other part might be more interesting depending on your history with the series and like whether the name Eric Lecard means it. Lecard is from Fear and Hunger. Eric Lecard means anything to you. Didn't mean anything to me. He's just a guy to me.
Yeah.
Whether that means anything to you, the other part of the story might hit a little bit more. So those two daughters of Bronner, the vampire who's running the castle, they're not actually his daughters. His daughters died in some sort of accident, I want to say.
I think they died in World War I.
That might be it. Yeah.
Yeah, they died a while ago, and their loss drove him to become a vampire.
Yeah. And he has enthralled these two girls or turned them into vampires, and they're under his control. And so they think they're his daughters while they're under the spell, but they're not.
No.
And there's a non-standard ending for the game. If you get into a boss fight around the midway point in the game, but just about the point where I was like, Castlevania games aren't that long. We're probably near the end here.
Yeah,
you get into a boss fight.
The tower.
Yeah, you climbed up the tower. Yeah, you fight both of them at the same time, and if you kill them in the fight, you get the non-standard ending.
Yeah. Bronner shows up, and sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I don't remember it exactly.
Bronner shows up, and it's just like, no, please, okay, stop. I'll go. Don't kill my girls. Like, I am. Okay, I will go. The castle will crumble. I will release the power. I am just truce. Cool. Like,
and then
it's like, well, we stopped some.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was what I was going to say is the overwhelming feeling that I got in that ending was, there's probably something else in this game, because that sure didn't feel like the end of an entire game.
Yeah, and if you go one floor up from that boss room, there's an area that's like, oh, well, that's sealed off and we can't go in there.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. You've reached the end of the game. You don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Surely.
Yeah, it's fine. We can leave the castle. It's not a big deal. The magically sealed room. So what you have to do to reach like the true kind of second or final third of the game, roughly, is Charlotte learns a spell called Sanctuary along the way, which the flavor text for that doesn't explicitly say it cures vampirism, but it says it cures curses in a way that's interesting.
And they demonstrate it in the game. You know, you have a shopkeeper in the game who is like a local monk, Vincent, who at some point you find him and he's like, so I was exploring the castle and I got bit. Oops. Yeah. And so yet again, nothing comes of it. You can finish the game and never cure him. And later on, he'll just show up and be like, hello, you never saved me, kind of thing. But the way that you save him in story is you use Sanctuary. And he is a friendly NPC. He doesn't move. You're in a room that has no danger to it. Yeah. It's got a save point and everything. So it's very easy to use Sanctuary. And it's like, oh, you've cured me. Hey, wait a minute. Maybe we can use this to cure somebody else. Yep. It like very much leads you there.
Mm-hmm. This was a thing that I figured out by myself. I felt pretty good about being like, that cures vampires. I got a bad ending from killing 2 vampire children. I bet I have to use that in that fight. Yeah. And that spell takes fucking forever to complete in the middle of a fight against 2 boss enemies.
Yes. It takes 10 actual real-world seconds.
Yeah, and you can't get hit, can't get interrupted. Mm-hmm. So what you can do, and what I ended up doing was like, I knew their attacks pretty well, so I knew which ones took a while and which ones I could like get some distance. Charlotte can start firing off the spell, and then Jonathan can stand guard in front of her and kind of soak some hits or something like that. Just give Charlotte 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's got a real like anime feeling of I need to charge up my strongest attack, but it's going to take 5 minutes. So Goku, you've got to go fight Raditz.
Can someone throw a shield up?
Yeah, I need the Makan Kosopo, and off we go here. So and that is a very fun gameplay and story integration that goes on. Like, sure, you would totally do this in an anime or in a movie. Like you've got the mage character, the magic user. It's like, I need to read the spell. Can you hold them off? And it like keeps cutting back to them and like trying to read through it. Like, are you done yet? Don't interrupt me, kind of thing.
Goku charging the spirit bomb for 7 straight episodes in one of those story arcs. I've been there.
Well, it's in the Mummy movies, the revival spell, and it's got that bit where it's like, I don't know this last symbol. What? It's a bird. It's a stork, kind of thing. Yelling it back and forth. It's got that feeling, and which is why, again, I don't know if I'd want every boss fight to play like that. but it has such a cool, dire feeling to it. Like,
Yeah.
you know the solution, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can pull it off immediately.
Yeah. So it's those two moments when I think they really creatively explored how can we use abilities from both characters in a boss fight in a way that's beyond just switch to use a spell, switch back to Jonathan because the spell is over.
Yeah.
It's this one using Sanctuary, and then the final form of the final boss when it has that crushing wall attack.
The fingers.
When it's like, yeah, and it's like everything is so frantic. Narratively, both characters are freaking the fuck out, smacking these things, trying to break it before they get crushed.
Yeah. And something cool about Sanctuary as well is it does have a limited range. You don't need to be super close to it, but everybody needs to be on the same screen, and it's a big enough boss room, so you can't just cheese it by cornering them. So there is still that element. They knew to maintain the element of danger. Just the same way as the Talons encroaching on a one-hit kill with Dracula, you can activate your partner and just go to town, like, to get rid of it.
Yeah. It did that Sanctuary one, fighting the twins, did give me that really frantic moment of like, I'm holding them off as best I can, and with my other eye, I'm watching that bar slowly filling up, and it's almost there, but oh fuck, they turned around and they're walking towards Charlotte now, like that kind of panic. And like that is legitimately like one of my favorite like gameplay things about the game. And it's probably my favorite thing that asks me to consider both characters at the same time.
Yeah.
The one hit kill thing, that's a little bit of like summon, button mash, and also use the special weapon skill that does a bit more damage. Like that's a little bit, it's different, but a little bit less satisfying to pull off. But I mean, I guess the difference being like, if you get hit when using Sanctuary, just find another window and try again.
Yeah, whereas if you fail to fend off the Talons, like we keep saying, one hit kill.
Yep. So we did mention that is Dracula in the final boss. Did you really think that Dracula wasn't going to make an appearance in this game? No, he's here.
Well, Death has spent the whole time being like, I'm here. The castle's here. Surely my master is somewhere around here. We're figuring this out.
Yeah. So Bronner was using the power of those paintings to contain Dracula and kind of take over the castle. By destroying the paintings, you let Dracula out. And so I forget, do you even fight Bronner at the end?
Yes, you do.
You do, but it's not that hard, I don't think.
It's a boss fight like any other, because you unlock the last portrait room, which after you've sanctuaried the girls, the next room over is Bronner's portrait, and 4 portraits around it, which are the 4 remixed levels. And there's like 4 big chains in front of Bronner's portrait. As you complete each of these portraits, one of those disappears. You go in there and it's just to fight with Bronner. It is kind of fun. It's got a whole bunch of like big painting things going on. He is an artist, and he's got some of the fun Hammy's voice lines. And I do love the voice lines and sound design in this game, by the way. Like they're flourishes, and it's better for it. But you don't get to finish him off. You you deplete it, and like a cutscene goes on, and then Death shows up out of nowhere and just murks him. Just like, gotcha, bitch! Huge scythe, Bronner's gone. And it's like, cool, thanks, kids. Now Dracula's back.
Yep. It's not just Dracula either. Death is on Dracula's team because Death doesn't like you either. So Death is like, we're teaming up to fuck you up. So that's the final boss. Is Dracula attacks while Death attacks from above you. And it's a nice thing to... The way Death works in that fight is to always make you move. You're always moving, because when Death moves above you, then he comes down and attacks.
Yeah, and it's a nice combination of what both Death and Dracula are classically known for in their boss fights in the first phase.
Yeah, shooting fireballs and
Yeah, like that slow teleport, like get ready for it, like big thing. It hurts but you can kind of telegraph with it. And there's a fun conversation where, Dracula's there and it's like, good, I can deal with you now. And first Death is like, let me deal with these, master. And Dracula's like, no, together we do this. And it's like, all right, 2 versus 2. Now it's fair. Jonathan, shut the fuck up. Now it's fair.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I like that they have the duality idea throughout, even to the final boss where, yeah, it's you fight Dracula and death at the same time. And if you defeat, and I think they have their classic, like, in games with HP, death has 4,444, Dracula has 6,666. And if you deplete one of them, you get to the next phase, and Dracula does a canonical spell in the series, Soul Steal, and like takes on Death's power and becomes the big crazy form that he is at the end.
Yep. And so that is it. Basically, I think in that last form, as long as you don't get crushed by the one-hit kill move, you're probably generally fine. And so you take out Dracula, the castle crumbles, and the spirit that we've kind of mentioned a few times, his name is Wind. He's the one who died fighting Bronner before, I believe. Yeah. And those are his daughters that Bronner had taken and enthralled.
Yes.
And so they say goodbye at the end.
Yes, because we lightly reference it. Wind is the spirit of Eric Lecard, who is the other playable character from Bloodlines and a good friend of John Morris's. So the idea of like, why did my father die? Why didn't he ever tell me how to use the whip? Well, this is why. Because the vampire killer stole his life essence, and he wanted you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet without this thing like killing you. Oh. Wow, that dealt with a lot of angst I was having. Thank you, Eric.
Yes.
Jesus. And Bronner enthralled the girls because they are basically the spitting image of his dead daughters. So he thinks they're the reincarnation of his girls. And so as far as he's concerned, they are his girls. And humanity takes so much. He gives a good, cool motive, still a vampire kind of speech about it. And so you do get, and like Eric is like, please don't tell the girls what happened to me. Like, I will get to say goodbye to them, but like, don't mess with them. Once you save them, they've dealt with enough, and they're even just like, we're so sorry about the trouble we caused you, and we're tired. Do you need help with because the reason the Lecards and the Morrises are a whole thing is because the Lecards are the keepers of what helps the Morrises use the whip, Eric in Bloodlines uses a spear, the Alucard spear. And apparently that was used to empower the vampire killer so John could have the full power of a Belmont. And you do get to use the Alucard spear if you do one of Eric's quests. It's what I'm using on my New Game Plus. It fucks severely, but it's very fun. And it plays differently than the Vampire Killer, and I switched to that plenty. But there's a whole thing there. And like you said, Dave, if you've never played Bloodlines, if you don't care about the story, who cares? This is the vampire girl's actual father. And as the castle crumbles, he gets to say goodbye, and that's fun. Yeah.
And then that's the end of the story, but that's not necessarily the end of what you could be doing in Portrait of Ruin. So I thought about doing the nest of evil is the extra level.
I keep wanting to call it the Den of Evil, but that's the first quest from Diablo 2.
I thought about doing it, and I kind of looked up like how to access it, and it was like you got to do a bunch of quests with Wind, and I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it, but I do know the appeal of like kind of endless, maybe not endless, but like, pure combat challenges in these Castlevania games. Cause I spent a lot of time in the arena in Circle of the Moon when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So I get the appeal. You did have a neat note about the music in the Nest of Evil that I thought was really cool.
Yeah. It's one of those where it's like, it's got a cool driving rock song to it. And it's kind of you go across a floor, like you've got several big arena-like rooms filled with whatever challenges with a boss room. And then when you get to the boss room, there is a fast travel room. So like kind of from floor to floor, you can travel, you can make your way back. That's their like rest spot.
Yeah.
When you go to the next, kind of as you go there, the music speeds up a little. So if you are making your way through, you might not notice immediately that it's happening. But if you fast travel, it will suddenly be like, whoa, this is going. Damn, okay. And you can't fast travel. It's within its own portrait, so you have to leave and come back. So no matter what, when you come back, there is all right, I'm hearing the music. Cool, let me go to where I left off. Was it always doing that?
Yeah.
Jesus!
Was it always 250 beats per minute? Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. No, it picks the fuck up.
That's really cool.
It's fun.
I love that. A little simple thing they can do to make you feel a little bit of stress, as you're in like the harder parts of it. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And it's
Are
also,
there new bosses in there?
Yeah. Well, and there's also some old bosses too. There is one of the more infamous bosses from the Sorrow games is Gurgoth, which is this big, armless, eyeless abomination that you fight in a single screen room and has a massive, heavy damage mouth laser attack. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this thing is heinous. It's horrifying. I love it. And
you bring it back.
Bringing it back. There's a quest in you have to defeat that using the weakest of Charlotte's weapons, which is just a book. It is a blank book that nothing comes out of it. You can do whatever you want to bring it down. The last blow has to be literally throwing the book at him.
Okay, the last blow. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it sounds like the quests go insane at a certain point, but if it's just the last blow, then...
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you're able to figure out, and it doesn't have to be the first time you fight it, you can try it as many times as you want. And so there's a little bit of let me try that again. How many hit points does it have? Okay, so if I do this much, you can kind of set that up. And there's also a spell called Berserk that Charlotte can do where her attack power skyrockets. But she literally stands in one place and just goes through whatever attack animation she has over and over and over again. So if you can set it up right where you can kind of get behind Gurgoth's legs and get him in a nice attack pattern where he's locked in place. It's locked in place. And you can just set off Berserk and kill it with the book.
Just beat the back of its knees with a book until it dies?
Pretty much, yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of enemies in there that don't show up elsewhere. So there's one or two that have kind of there's probably 6 or 7 enemies that only show up there. And one of them I know drops a spell for Charlotte. So one of the quests is get every single spell. So you will need to go there and fight one of the Amadeus enemy a couple of times, which is a big annoying one. And so it's, again, if you want to do 100% completion, if you do want to do those intense quests, yep, Nest of Evil.
Yeah, there we go. Anything else noteworthy about optional or post-game stuff that's either fun, funny, or some combination of the two?
Oh, definitely. As mentioned, there is a hard mode where you can set the level cap to either 50, 25, or 1.
Okay.
Which, there again, have fun with that. People can do challenge runs till they're blue in the face. If you get the good ending, you unlock 2 different character modes. You can play as the sisters, which if you want to feel powerful, do that. Sisters mode, you control. These girls float. They literally float. I don't think they have walking animations. So you attack by clicking on things with the stylus on the touch screen, and it's just fly around and fuck them up.
That's fun.
It feels fun. And it's actually canonical. It's meant to be their assault on the castle before Bronner took them over.
Okay.
So they have a little bit of fun there. And then, you also unlock Richter mode, where Rondo of Blood, Dracula X, you played as Richter, you saved a bunch of captive people if you found the right keys, did the right things, and one of the first ones you find is Maria Renard, a 12-year-old girl with magic powers, who, once you unlock her, you can then choose to play some of the stages as Maria. She was kind of the easy mode because she has a smaller hitbox, she's a little more maneuverable, and she's got a lot of long-range magic attacks.
Yeah.
Sound familiar? Because now you can play as Richter and Maria. And so you don't get to hear them yell each other's names. They don't add new lines. This is very much, again, recycling assets.
Yeah.
But it's a very fun one. And it's a nice callback. And it's, again, that more Castlevania of it all.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
And then there's a deeply silly one.
Yes.
So there's an enemy in the game called the Old Axe Armor. These are old-style axe armor enemies from the original games. In Symphony of the Night, you can find in a secret place the Old Axe Armor. If you put it on, you play as one of them. Like, when you unpause from it, you hear Alucard go, "What?" And you are it. It can barely jump. It's faster, but you can't equip anything else. Nothing matters. It's just a dumbass
do
novelty.
like either the underhand or the overhand axe throw?
You can't throw the axe. You just have an axe swing.
Okay.
And if you kill, because the game keeps track of how many of each enemy you have defeated, which is great for you to be like, how many of these have I fought? They need to drop whatever it is they have, for God's sake. If you kill 1,000 old axe armors, you unlock the ability to play as one. You do not switch into any other character. They have all sorts of little things for full maneuverability, like they have an hold up an L and they'll like catapult into the ceiling kind of thing. They have everything they need to traverse where they're going. They have a small enough hitbox that they can go anywhere.
Okay.
And a very funny anomaly of the game, we've mentioned how different enemies will treat Jonathan or Charlotte differently. Old axe armor is treated as a girl.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're essentially like a skeleton in an armor, and I think there is concept art somewhere of like a woman that you never see in any other game or in anything else in the armor. So I think you're canonically that axe armor? I don't know. But that's there.
Yeah. So it fits in the little gaps that only like the Toad transformation could go into before?
Yeah.
That's fun.
Like, whatever things, it's like, well, what about doing this? They can do this.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah,
look,
fuck
they
it.
killed 1,000 old axe armors. Let them do whatever the hell they want.
Kind of, yes. If you've already engaged in that, like, the amount of fucks are gone. There are none more to give.
The developers, the developers are basically giving you the keys at that point, right?
Yeah.
They're like, you know what, you own this now. Have fun.
Are we all goofing? Cool. Let's goof.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, we've said the game has a good sense of humor, but like, I like when the developers, this is Konami, like, Silent Hill games are always great with this, where it's like, okay, you did our story, you experienced our very serious, very sad story. Now have fucking fun. Have a lightsaber, dress Heather as a magical girl in Silent Hill 3. Like, go have fun when you're done with it. We're having fun now too.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you remember this is a video game. This is a toy. This is some fun that we're having. Let's go. Yeah,
you've done all of the things that we asked. Now, here you go. Have all the fun that you want with it.
And especially like you have killed 1,000 old axe armors. You are committed. I don't know.
I was gonna say, how many do you think you would kill normally in a playthrough? Like 25, maybe
50
Not
at
that
the
many?
most.
Yeah.
Like,
so this is a commitment to killing 1,000 of them.
Right. And I don't know if there's a way that you unlock it and you do it in the first playthrough without finishing the game, or if you have to finish the game to unlock it. But either way, chances are you have finished the game in some capacity and have now killed 1,000 axe armors.
It's like the only way you would come across that naturally is if you just kept playing the game forever, like maxing all the weapon masteries and, trying to get all the drops and everything like that. Yeah. And even then, it still feels like it's a little bit beyond that stuff. And so it's like it feels like to me, from the outside looking in, one final thing that the developers are like, all right, here's our last toy for you.
Yeah. It's one of those where, again, where you get the old axe armor in Symphony of the Night, you get you get a super jump ability that you can chain together. So, like, you can do it without hitting the ground. It uses a little bit of mana, but off you go. Yeah. And if you go to the library, there's a librarian where he sits and sells you stuff. You might notice under his chair, there's a little shaft. So if you do the super jump straight up and you hit him, he like kind of throws his hands in the air, makes no sound, but just like a ho about it, and you get an HP max up. If you continue to do this to him without touching the ground, you will unlock several items, one of which, and I think the last of which, is the old axe armor. Yet again, you have to commit to sheer dumbassery, tomfoolery, bumfuckery, and you are rewarded for it with, like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah.
but one where you're engaging with the game. You're clearly having fun. Let's have fun.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, speaking of fun, this episode has been just that. Been a lot of fun. Jen, thank you for giving me, look at us, more time than even both of us predicted to talk about Castlevania. Yeah. It's been fun. Obviously talking about specifics in Portrait of Ruin, but like I said, it's the first Castlevania game to appear on the show. And so I've got some general Castlevania topics that I wanted to talk about too. And it's been a blast going through them with you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on for this. Yeah, there's a reason why I immediately jumped at the chance to talk about this. I have so much love for the Castlevania series, for this era of Vanias, for this game in particular. And I was surprised to find out when you told me that this was your first mainline Tales from the Backlog tackling any Castlevania. Yeah. Hopefully this isn't the last, but it's really kind of cool to kind of broach that topic. And no, this was so much fun.
For sure. Definitely won't be the last Castlevania on the show. I may do more of the classic ones on the Tales from the Way Backlog series, but some of those might be on the main show too, just depending on what I'm feeling like doing. So it definitely won't be your last time on the show either. I'm sure I'll have you back soon enough.
There's gonna be something, yeah.
Yeah. Always a pleasure. So
likewise.
Down in the show notes, I will put links once again to Jen's work on the Fun and Games podcast. And and you can also follow on Blue Sky and stuff like that. So as the music is playing us out, please go find something on Fun and Games to listen to. I know you need another podcast when this is over. So go check that out. If you're here at the end, as always, you're my hero. And tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Hey, you there! This is Nomad speaking. If you love retro video games and you're itching for some nostalgia, check out the Retro Wildlands podcast. In each episode, I'll use game music and sound to pull you into the gaming experience while I share my own thoughts and maybe a few memories. It's a great way to relive one of your favorite games or learn about a new one. Check out the Retro Wildlands podcast at superpodnetwork.com or wherever you listen to your podcast.
You should listen to the Character Issues podcast. It's a scientific podcast where me, Brian Edwards, your host du jour, and my co-hosts, Leah Haydu.
Everyone loves Blitzball. I hate Blitzball. Fuck Blitzball.
And Rich Davison.
Are you implying that he intentionally tried to run over his daughter and then sort of bloviated a journey around Silent Hill to make sure that she could bleed out in the process?
Work towards building a list of the greatest video game characters of all time. Every character will be ranked. Every character shall be ranked. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find your podcast. Character Issues is available for download. So, if you're interested in the hard-nosed science and definitely not a comedy podcast hosted by a couple of numbskulls, you should check out the Character Issues podcast because, let's face it, it's better if you do.